It is our intention that each of these cassette messages be built upon a major principle, the proper use of which will result automatically in more successful living. In this one, I'm going to give you a principle which will help you attain your personal and career goals, and even more important, will result in your achieving a peace of mind you may never have experienced. And since it's the kind of principle it is, it would be well to get the whole family together for this message, particularly the children. Again, it seems that at least 95% of the people, maybe more, don't know about this, at least not fully. So the person who does know has an enormous advantage. The seed for achievement is, believe it or not, truth. Not necessarily the kind of truth we hear so much about, although that's important, but the kind of truth you don't hear much about, particularly these days. Truth means honesty, and the way in which I want to describe this kind of truth was perhaps best put by Shakespeare, when in Hamlet he has Polonius say, "And this above all, to thine own self be true. And it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." The kind of truth I want to talk to you about is inner truth, truth to yourself. You know, we hear a lot these days about the conquest of outer space, and that's wonderful, but as a radio listener wrote to me one day, there is little we cannot accomplish as persons if we manage the conquest of inner space. Being truthful with ourselves means taking the responsibility of making the best use of what we have. And what do we have? We have our minds, our abilities, our peculiar talents, and time. Now, these are our possessions. Now, this is really an immense amount of wealth that belongs to each of us, and it's the investment of our wealth which will determine our rate of return. As with the ownership of wealth of any kind, it's left to us as persons to decide what use we'll make of it. We can squander it until it's all gone. We can spend it in a helter-skelter, hit-or-miss fashion without much purpose or meaning. Or we can invest it with intelligence and purpose and receive an abundant return, a return which will more than provide for ourselves and our loved ones all the years of our lives. The choice is ours, and it's here that personal honesty and integrity come into the picture. For a moment, let's remind ourselves again of the great law behind everything in the universe, the law of cause and effect. For every cause, there will be an equal effect. If we make good use of our minds, abilities, and talents, this will become apparent in our outer lives. If we make the best use of our time, this too will give us a great advantage, because certainly we know that scarcely 5, perhaps only 2 or 3 people in 100 really put their time to anywhere near its potential good use. Now, this is being true to ourselves because in the last analysis we're the only ones from whom we can steal time or talent or ability. It's taking the time we've been given and putting it to our own good use. It's taking whatever abilities and talents we possess as separate and unique persons and putting them to their best use. In short, making the best of what we have in the time we are given to use it. Sound simple? Well, truth is always simple and uncomplicated. And here again, we're placing ourselves above competition by doing what the majority does not do. We're understanding something the great majority of people don't know. Here's the foundation upon which every great career has been built. Integrity, truth, and honesty are bases for success. Let's look at some facts. Success has nothing to do with the size of the brain. The largest brain on record was the brain of an idiot. The smallest, the brain of Anatole France, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1921. Some of the world's greatest people in every field are or were short, bald, and fat. Some tall and skinny. Some were brilliant and well-educated. Some had little or no formal schooling. So the person destined for greatness cannot always be spotted on the street, nor does he always get the vote of his school graduating class as the one most likely to succeed. But truly successful people all have one thing in common. They all seem to understand, consciously or unconsciously, the law of cause and effect, and they work with it instead of trying to work against it. Although most people will give lip service to honesty, they're really not all that sure about it. With the great majority, it's a matter of expediency. It's expedient to be honest. Fine, they're honest. If it's more expedient to realize a quick profit in some way by not disclosing the whole truth or by shading it a bit, well, they'll shade it a bit. Why? because they live on a short-term, instant gratification basis. They don't see living as a long-term arrangement. They forget or don't know about what I like to call the unfailing boomerang. Every time a person does something dishonest, whether it's small or large, whether it's stealing a pair of pliers from the plant or embezzling $10,000, whether it's selling himself short by not making full use of his time, talents, and abilities, he's throwing the boomerang. How far it'll travel, no one knows. How great or small a circle it will traverse, only time will tell. But it will eventually, it must finally, it will inevitably come around behind him to deliver its never-failing and painful blow. Yes, honesty is good business. In fact, Mirabeau wrote, if honesty didn't exist, we ought to invent it as the best means of getting rich. It's the only way on earth to real and lasting success of any kind. Either we're convinced of this with every fiber of our being, totally, completely, or we are not. If we don't know this by the time we're adults, we deserve every knock we get. In fact, if we didn't deserve them, we wouldn't get them. All we have to do under every circumstance is ask ourselves, is this true, is this honest, and then go ahead with the happy realization that we've taken care of the cause, and that the effect will then take care of itself. You and I know that living successfully is a matter of forming the right habits, one of the most important of which is honesty in everything we do. Now consider this for a moment. The most effective counter to worldwide tyranny and subjugation is free world industry. We all know this. Our only hope of success, of winning the hearts and minds of the world's people, is in helping them raise their productivity through free enterprise and thus improving their standard of living. But if we're content to give less than our best, we're actually working against ourselves, against our way of life. When we fail to give honest measure to others and to ourselves, we're crippling the very thing which has given us the highest standard of living and the most enlightened society on earth, our very freedom. Today, workers in the free world earn many times more than a worker in a closed society, and their standard of living makes them monarchs by comparison. And you would imagine they'd feel this is worth working for. Well, let's hope that enough of us do feel this way to make the difference. The average person in our society is paid for about 40 hours of productive time a week. This leaves that person with 128 hours a week to do with as he pleases. Never before in the history of man have we had so much free time. By giving everything he or she has, as much of the mind, talents, and abilities to at least these 40 hours, a person can make a really worthwhile and substantial contribution to his or her company, career, or profession, and as a result, to him or herself, family, the nation, and to the free world. By giving the honest best during working hours, he or she will be building the security which lasts a lifetime and will reap a rich and abundant reward. In fact, we'd all know a wonderful feeling of worth, of value, and the peace of mind this inevitably brings. This is the way to really live. I think it's true to say that required working hours are for earning a living. When we give to our work beyond what's required, we're really giving to ourselves, our personal growth, our real career success. Our greatest enemy has never changed, and his name is ignorance. And the greatest ignorance of all is the mistaken belief that we can ever receive more than we earn, that there's a free lunch out there somewhere. Sooner or later, there will be an accounting. We're throwing the boomerang every day of our lives. The wonderful thing about this law, cause and effect, the boomerang, is that it's just as unfailing when we operate on the right side of it. Just as it can never fail to punish us when we're dishonest with others or with ourselves, it'll heap upon us the abundance we seek, the good life, if we'll play fair. There's no time limit on this. It's almost never too late, for just as the punishment always seems to be greater than the crime, the rewards always seem to be out of all proportion to our honest efforts. So let's summarize. What do we mean by putting truth to work for us? It means willingness to perform at our best during the time we should be performing at our best. This gives comfort and a feeling of well-being to our leisure time. Our rest has been earned, and we've got plenty of time for rest. We know we'll move ahead because we'll simply be too remarkable, too unusual and outstanding to go unnoticed for very long. This is as it should be, for there has never been a time when the outstanding person was more sorely needed than today. It means the willingness to keep an open mind, to look for truth all the days of our lives and be ready to toss our most cherished beliefs into the ash can if we can be shown something that comes closer to the truth. It's knowing that there's always a better way, and a better way than that. and so on, and looking in everything we do for these better ways of conducting ourselves. It's realizing that a person who does not read is no better than one who cannot read, and that a person who does not continue to learn to grow as a person is no better than one who cannot. And it's understanding that we must walk with truth every day of our lives if we're to reap the abundant harvest. The greatest joy a human being can know is the joy of accomplishment. Think how really great our jobs become when we're making constant, growing use of our minds, our talents, and our abilities. So think of your life as a plot of ground to be seeded. It can only return to you what you first give to it. And what do you have to give? You have great wealth indeed. You have a human mind, the greatest single agency ever to appear on earth. You have far more abilities than you've ever used, and far more talent than you probably dreamed of. And you have time, the one thing which is completely beyond our control, time which cannot be saved, stopped, nor held back for even an instant. Make full use of these riches while you have them. Why wait to say, I wish I could do it all over again? There is no second chance. Use truth as your guide, and your plot of ground will return to you and yours in abundance that will amaze and delight you. There may be bad days, days when you feel uneasy, worried, or depressed. They're a part of life. Should they come, let me suggest that you remember a quotation which has helped me and a lot of other people over some rough spots. It's from Dean Briggs, and it goes like this. Do your work. Not just your work and no more, but a little more for the lavishing's sake, that little more which is worth all the rest. And if you suffer as you must, and if you doubt as you must, do your work. Put your heart into it, and the sky will clear. And then out of your very doubt and suffering will be born the supreme joy of life.